Thanks for staying with us. And Bill O'Reilly in the Unresolved Problem segment tonight. As I reported earlier, the New York Times and others, mostly on the left, definitely feel sorry for some alleged terrorists being detained by the Bush administration. There is a virtual industry now of former detainees who have been released from custody, all claiming abuse at Guantanamo Bay and other places.
We were beaten constantly, taken to interrogation, put in interrogation rooms for hours and hours and hours in positions that are very stressful, that cause a lot of pain, and having taken out your cell on numerous occasions, getting beaten, put into isolation for months on end, and constantly having this fear inside you that you don't know on a daily basis what's going to happen to you, and having our religious rights abused.
Now, we don't know much about that guy. We checked him out, but he's over in Britain, and he says he was, tortured and everything like that. Doesn't look tortured to me, but how do I know? The U.S. military continues to deny any such abuse. Joining us now from Washington, former New York Times correspondent Cliff May, current columnist for Scripps Howard, and John Flannery, an international law attorney. Mr. May, we'll begin with you. As I said, I don't know whether that guy's story, the Brit, is true or not. We've checked him out. We can't really find out much about him, but we do know that the New York Times op-ed, as I said earlier in the page today, is totally bogus. I mean, and the New York Times had to know that allowing this guy to write an op-ed in the nation's most prestigious newspaper. I mean, how do you process that? Do you think it's corruption? What is it?
Well, the Times appears to be on something of a crusade, if you'll excuse the expression, against Guantanamo. They seem to want to close it down. On Monday, they had an editorial saying that Guantanamo was a netherworld of despair. Today's headline was Detainees in Despair. The two talking points they're trying to get across, one is that those who are in Guantanamo don't deserve to be there. I don't think the evidence suggests that's true, certainly not for the vast majority. The other is that if they're in despair, that's terrible. That's beyond the pale. Frankly, anybody who is incarcerated anywhere may suffer from despair. So what? That is, suffering from despair because you're in prison is not the same as torture or anything else that's supposedly so terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, what the Times and others are calling for is some kind of disposition of the case, some kind of criminal proceeding to be launched so that these guys can be either convicted or acquitted. Is that unreasonable?
It is unreasonable. We've had detainees in every war in the past, and that has not been the process. What they do have is a tribunal. Every one of them comes before a tribunal that decides whether or not they should be there. Then there is a review board that looks at every case every year and decides who can be released. Many are released. The two you mentioned, both of them have been released. They also have the International Red Cross, which has unfettered access. They can have lawyers. U.S. taxpayers don't pay, but they can have. Many do. They can be in contact with their family. So there is due process. It is more due process than prisoners in World War II or most other wars ever had, much more than is permitted.
Now, Mr. Flannery, am I overstating the New York Times with this guy? I mean, I know you're on the left on this one, but surely you would have been surprised by all that I told you about this poor, sympathetic guy who just made a bad vacation decision and came back and wound up in Gitmo. Come on.
No, I wouldn't have been surprised, because in his own column he says that his older brother, who was a bad influence, and convinced him when he was 19 to go to this al-Qaeda camp for 2 years, and he was never a combatant. But I don't have to rely on him to know that there are atrocities in Guantanamo. We had 26 FBI agents there who wrote reports. And when Senator Durbin on the floor of the Senate read them aloud, the Virginia Senator Allen said, "I can't stand the truth." And I mean, I'm a little surprised at you, Bill, because you're a journalist, and we give vent to people in this country to talk about their views. And I'm very grateful that Cliff writes columns instead of writes laws, because you'd have no justice if he was on the bench.
Okay, but
it's
look,
you can
debate the legalisms of their detainment. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting at the New York Times making a man seem sympathetic who writes an incredibly, like, you don't believe that, Flannery. You're an Irish guy. You don't believe this guy made a bad vacation system and wanted to get back to Paris, so he went the wrong direction to Pakistan. That's just stupid. Nobody's buying that.
He wasn't going to Paris.
Sure he was. He wanted to get home, and home was France, and the international airport is at Paris. And he goes to Pakistan to get there? No. You don't do that. It doesn't make sense, and it's a bunch of crap, and you know it.
Give me this, Bill. Then our government made a mistake when they released him 2 years ago.
No, I gave him to France. France is trying him. France wanted to try him. The government said, here, Try him.
And he said he's prepared to own up to what he did.
Yeah, he's an
Al
Al-Qaeda guy. That's who he is.
He said he's prepared to say he went to a camp, but he was not a combatant. He was not involved
He's an Al-Qaeda guy.
And he was held for 2 years without a hearing, without a lawyer. And finally, when they believed his story, they gave him a box of cookies.
So you feel, Flannery, you feel sorry for this guy? Is that what you're telling me?
I feel sorry for every person that can't be told
How about
what the
this
charge
guy?
is.
Do you feel sorry for this guy?
Every guy
Look,
or woman that's trapped in a system without hope, and that's why we had suicides in Guantanamo.
I don't think that's why we had.
All right,
Oh,
go ahead,
absolutely. Oh, it's only the Rear Admiral.
All right, let
Harris
Cliff
thinks
get
this
in.
is-
Let Cliff get in. Go ahead.
Look, right now, what you have there is a system that includes military tribunals, that includes a review board, that includes the International Red Cross, that includes lawyers. You can say what you want about the past, although a lot of the allegations, the Koran flushing, the torture, no evidence of that. But at least right now, it seems to be a system working. Now, if you want to say the system can be improved, go ahead. But if you're saying the camp should be shut down, tell me what are we going to do with those prisoners and others that we hopefully will apprehend.
Yes.
And we're going to let them
hold
fine,
hearings
and then
decide what to do with them.
And we
And
let
the
them
ones that
all
should be repatriated.
They all get hearings. They all
They all get
right
hearings.
now.
Yes, that's the American
Well,
way.
look, I mean,
They do right now before
due process. You get
they get a
hearings.
military. The hearings are a military tribunal. And
Well, I
Secret
think what, to be
evidence.
fair,
What do you want them to have?
all right, that's it. We got to go. To be fair, I think the tribunal system should be sped up, but
Okay.
closing
It's
the camp
still-
down is insane, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.